So this film starts with a funeral and a cross-dresser.
Wait, what?
Just start with a synopsis and we'll get to it later, okay?
Thunderball releases a novel in 1961 and as a Terrence Young Helm film in 1965, finds Bond on the trail of one Emilio Largo, a Spectre agent in the Bahamas, who is in possession of 2 stolen nuclear devices.
Bond is also after Dominique, or Domino, Patachi, or Durval in the film, the mistress/ward of Largo.
To elaborate a little bit and to remind you, of course, Spectre is a foreign terrorist organization headed by Ernst Stavro Blofeld. They were featured primarily in From Russia with Love. In this film, what they do is they hijack a bomb from the UK, take the 2 nukes off it, and hold the British and American governments hostage, unless, of course, they don't pay the ransom, and then Largo will detonate nukes in the Bahamas and off the coast of Florida.
Bond reteams with the returning CIA agent Felix Leiter, this time played by Rick Van Netter, to track down Largo and investigate him and retrieve the bombs before the ransom deadline.
Bond and Leiter fight evidence against Largo, ambush his nuke delivery squad with the cavalry that Leiter called in, and recover the nukes, but unfortunately that lands Bond and Domino in the hospital. The end.
Well, that was quick.
Why, thank you. Now, we might as well kick the rest of the category rundown into high gear. We have the usual categories, of course. We have exoticism, we have gender, identity, sexuality issues, we have treatment of women, of course, and lastly we have adaptation changes. And we might as well toss 2 new ones in there, gadgets and national identity, which is what we'll start with.
Bond embodies the British nation. It's that simple. He embodies the British nation, even though he doesn't like tea and he's a suave womanizer. Mind you, this is set about 20 years after the end of World War II, so the sun has essentially set on the British Empire. So imperialism, colonialism, and expansionism are all right off the table. Now, continuing off Bond's previously stated implicit mission of a policeman of gender, sexuality, and identity boundaries is to act as a symbol or representative of Britain abroad, usually through his womanizing. Because, hey, exerting foreign dominance over foreign women still shows that Britain has power, even in the sack. So you have Bond, a British representative in the Bahamas, part of the Commonwealth, chasing after an Italian woman and a member of a foreign terrorist organization. Okay. You also have to look at the fact how Bond really isn't vulnerable in these films, even though he is in the novels. Yes, this is kind of indicative of how Britain was at the time, and how nations are in general. If your national symbol looks weak, you look weak because your national symbol is reflective of how you are as a nation. So you don't want your national symbol to look weak. You don't want to see him getting knocked out and beaten up every single movie. You want to see him survive to the end, as he always does. In terms of gadgets, they're a little more subtle and mission appropriate, apart from the huge jetpack in the cold open. So you've got a Geiger watch, a Geiger camera, an infrared camera, a little tracking pill, and a mini rebreather, among other things. This is reflective of the Connery era overall. Sensible gadgets, suave womanizing, campy post-mortem one-liners, you get the idea. As for gender, sexuality, and identity issues, we have a few things. We have the cross-dressing Spectre agent, we have Blofeld's feminine quality, we have Largo's skate gun, and we might as well toss the rack in there for a bit of innuendo. The cross-dressing Spectre agent is most likely supposed to be humorous, because he's a man fighting in a dress, and the fight scene's kind of sped up, so yeah, it's kind of like a ha-ha, you're fighting in a dress sort of moment. Blofeld, even though he isn't seen in full in the film, is described in the novel as a heavy-set middle-aged man with a black crew cut and feminine eyelashes. So what if his eyelashes are feminine? I've been told I have gorgeous eyelashes. Never mind. That ski gun Largo is using, Bond describes it as somewhat feminine, as if to emasculate him. Well, he's already missing one eye, so you could always call him, one-eyed Largo, and that doesn't really work. As for the rack, the motion as well as the camera movement in the sequence seem to suggest that Bond is having sex with an inanimate object, which is kind of how women tend to be portrayed in the Connery era, as there really aren't too many strong female roles. The role of women differs based on the attitude and portrayal of Bond. For example, in the novel, Bond asks the masseuse assistant woman a couple times. She helps him out of the rack when he's been trapped there. And, they go on a date, and, they eventually do the deed. It's not as much of a fling as in the film where, this happens, and then Bond corners her in the steam room, and you get more of a fling sort of thing. Yeah. No means no, not keep asking me until you corner me in a private, hot, steamy room. There's also a female Spectre agent who's added to the film as a new character. She saves Bond's life a few times without him even knowing it, and when they eventually do the deed,
Afterwards, she doesn't succumb to his charms, because she's not the kind of person to do that. She's her own independent character, and then she's eventually killed by one of her associates when Bond uses her as a human shield. This could be viewed as actually a way of either punishment for not succumbing to Bond's charms, or as a way of containing her threat, like the way that the threats of deviance were contained in film noir by the private eye.
Domino is presented as more of the prize. Bond sees her picture in the mission briefing folder, and uses that fact to get him switched from a station in Canada to a station in Nassau. So first he's attracted by her looks, second he's attracted by the fact that she's connected to the case. He starts flirting with her way earlier, they end up doing it underwater, and by the end of the film, a scientist unties her, wakes her up, and she ends up killing Largo. Meanwhile, in the novel, she has more agency, because she survives Largo's torture, she escapes on her own, and she kills Largo as vengeance for killing her brother.
Exoticism. Yeah, there's little to none of it in the film or the novel. I mean, yeah, you have the Junkeroo parade in the film, and you have the fact that Domino's Italian, but otherwise, yeah, I got nothing.
You've also got a handful of adaptation differences. Spectre seems more secretive and secluded than they are in the novel. Plus, you have the fact that Largo's number and Blofeld's number are switched. I mean, I guess the reason there is, why would someone follow the number 2 instead of the number 1?
Why is Bond in the health clinic in the film? It's not really stated, but in the novel, you find out that M sent him there for a major health cleanse, because Bond is apparently a big smoker, roughly 60 cigarettes a day, and he drinks roughly half a bottle of 60 to 70% alcohol every day, every couple days thereabouts. So, yeah, major health cleanse.
The plane hijacking scenario is slightly different for the film, but it still more or less works. Yes, the organizations that are being ransomed are similar, not quite the same as in the novel, but the way the plane is hijacked is different. The film uses a Spectre doppelganger, thanks to plastic surgery, to replace Domino's brother as the pilot. Meanwhile, the novel actually has Domino's brother, who is being paid off by Spectre to hijack the plane.
Largo's got a shark tank, which adds a vicious element to the character. You wouldn't want to mess with him, because he could just cut you, toss you in the pool, and that'll be the end of that.
Vargas, the celibate henchman, is more prevalent in the film, even though he really only appears in the novel just once to kill Domino's brother.
There's also Lido, who takes more of a backseat in this film, even though he's a more influential character in the novels. He's Bond's equivalent in the CIA, not a bumbling sidekick from the CIA who appears in every couple of films.
So all in all, Thunderball is a decent adaptation, but it doesn't really improve too much in the treatment of women department. For more on that, of course, you can check out the novel. Thank you all for watching, and we will be back here next week when James Bond goes to Japan.